It's very important to me how the sound of words works. So when I'm writing, I always try to stop and read everything out to get a sound of it, because there are things that the eye won't catch when you're reading off the page, which the ear will catch. So to sit in a booth reading my work aloud feels very familiar, because it's what I do off the printed page. It's strange to know someone will hear me reading out loud, because there are inflections that I'll put into it, which I know I want to be in there, but I know that someone else who's reading it might inflect a phrase differently. So I feel I'm sort of guiding the reading in doing sort of my version of how it would sound, as the words on the page don't. So when I got the call to say I was on the Granta list, I was at home and at my desk. And, I got a call from John Freeman, who's the editor of Granta. And of course, whatever anyone might say, all the writers knew that around this time, Granta was making its decision. So, as soon as you hear John's voice, you sort of think, it can only be for this reason. He's not going to call me to say you're not on the list. And yet, until he quite gets to saying, this is why I'm calling, you don't want to jump the gun and believe it. But it was wonderful. I grew up in Karachi, and my mother used to subscribe to Granta. So it would arrive from London, every few months. And sometimes it wouldn't arrive because the mail would go astray, and that would be a terrible thing. So I grew up on the other side of the world with Granta as this kind of lodestone of publishing. So it was, it's pretty fantastic. So my story, Vipers, is about a man from Peshawar in 1915, British India, and he's serving with the 40th Pathans at Ypres. And I was interested in the idea of these Indian soldiers serving in the First World War. I was sort of dimly aware of them. And as I was researching the city of Peshawar and what was happening in the early 20th century, somewhere, and I don't actually remember where this happened, but I came upon a reference to these soldiers who had been fighting in the war. And there's actually a very famous Urdu novel by a man called Abdullah Hussain, which deals with First World War Indian fighters. So it is part of sort of the Urdu canon of literature. And I just became interested in it, in the idea of these men who went so far away into the most horrific wartime conditions for a country they didn't know, for people who didn't look like them or speak their language. And it was a story that really interested me. And then I read a book of letters, which is Indian Voices from the Great War. And to read these men writing home about their experiences was an extraordinary thing.